where my commander had gotten killed.
I see. Okay.
At
Okay.
Fort Campbell, Kentucky.
Right. So the people that walked into Colorado, that was not
They
north.
were just a couple agents coming in to let me know I'm going back to work.
Okay. All right. And then you were briefed by Ollie.
I found that they were actually NSA.
Okay.
So
you want to explain what NSA is?
National Security Agency. They do a lot of the background checks and everything in the United States. A lot of the spooks who listen to everything that's said here is NSA.
Right. The communications mainly is their job. Like wiretaps and keeping track of all of us via the telephones, and that's their job. So you're in Fort Campbell, you're given this assignment, you're going to be flying in and out medical supplies, right? And where are you flying these medical supplies out of?
Out of the Contra camps. When I finally went down posing as a pilot, we went into the Contra camps. We'd always take coolers in. Usually the coolers going in were C4, explosives, grenades, things like that. And we would bring medical supplies out, and those medical supplies we would bring out in these coolers, big 124 quart coolers, was actually packages, bricks of cocaine.
Okay. Did you actually see this?
Actually saw it, actually tested it.
And where did you do this?
We did field tests right in our medevac offices in Pomerola Air Base.
So before you put it on the plane, you tested to make sure it was real cocaine?
No, we tested them on several occasions. We didn't test every package, but some occasions they were delivered to our operations headquarters at Pomerola to take to an aircraft at a different location to fly out of the country. And whenever that happened, I would actually do a field test on it right there. On occasion, when I could get away with it without anyone seeing me, I'd do a field test on the aircraft. That was pretty hard to do.
Chip, you're flying out of what airfield in the United States?
In Honduras, we were flying out of the Contra camps into 3 airfields. One was San Lorenzo, one was Pomerola, and the other was in the northern part of the country called La Mesa. From there, the coolers were picked up by C-130s, C-141s, or civilian 123s. C-123s run by a company called Corporate Air Services out of Ilopango Air Base in San Salvador.
Corporate Air Services also being C.I.A.
C.I.A. And they were flown back into the States. I would find on a meeting on March 24th, 1985, that there were actually 3 different legs that stuff was moved on, and those legs were into Ohio, into Colorado, and into a little place in the center of the country in 1985 called Arkansas.
What airfield in Arkansas?
I know that there were 2 airfields in Arkansas. One was Arkansas Air Force Base, and the other one was a place called Mena.
And how about in Ohio?
In the Dayton, Ohio, and then in Colorado it was into Lamar, Colorado, and Pueblo, Colorado.
So you learned that the drugs are coming in then?
Oh yeah.
Cocaine?
Yeah.
On C.I.A. planes?
Everything went through Panama, and then from Panama it was distributed out.
Were they C.I.A. planes or military planes?
Military and CIA.
Both, huh?
Yeah.
Now, you tested it personally. Do you have any documents that would indicate that this is so?
Yes.
Oh, you do?
Yes.
I had no idea. Of course I did. Of course I did. That was a loaded question, Chip.
I know it was.
I knew the answer to that before I asked it. Okay, tell us about that.
When I started finding the cocaine on board the aircraft, I decided, hey, this could go one of 2 ways. They could set us up pretty darn quick here if they ever wanted to get rid of us because of our knowledge, and especially because of my knowledge, because Bill had told me, Chip, watch your butt, buddy. You have some real enemies here in Washington. So what I did is we would be required to file flight plans when we'd leave Pomerola Air Base, where we based out of in Honduras. We'd file flight plans, and when we'd come back, I'd go to base operations and write on the back of that flight plan what we found, where we took it, who was on board the aircraft, and what went on during the flight. Basically, I'd debrief right on the back of flight plans. When a trusted Honduran official, who happened to be the brother of the Honduran Army Chief of Staff, saw what I was doing, he said, "We're going to keep these, in a safe place. This is our insurance, Chip." I said, "Oh, okay."
And those notes are available in, right? Tatum Chronicles.
In the Tatum Chronicles.
I'm sorry, those notes are available in the Tatum Chronicles.
I went back to Honduras in 1985 and picked up those certified copies that are in those. In the Tatum Chronicles, it talks about all the people that you've heard of today involved in Honduras, involved in the Contra cocaine issues. Not only that, it also talks about persons before it even happened, because these are certified copies that were sealed in 1985 by Honduran officials. It talks about people who needed to be neutralized and assassinated, and who later were killed.
And Chip, what'd you do with these documents, besides hiding them around the world?
I also published them in the Tatum Chronicles when I was charged with treason. I was told to give these documents up, or I'd be charged with treason and be put to death or spend life imprisonment. So I called the Secret Service officers that came in and told me that were tasked to tell me this by the president, and I called them in and I said, okay boys, I've got the documents for you, come get them. In the meantime, we published this, sent it to the White House Library, sent it to the White House, to James Dorskin is his name, the personal assistant to the president, Clinton, sent it to Mr. Bush, sent it to others involved, and to Capitol Hill. And then I gave these guys the copy, the Secret Service agents, and they said, you just signed your death warrant. I said, kill me, boys. Let's go.
And I might also mention that you had some other papers and other documents you held back, right?
You know, over 25 years, I was able to compile quite an insurance policy. These documents are nothing compared to those documents. I feel comfortable in coming forward with these, and the only reason I'm coming forward with these, I had no intention of ever doing anything with these, but when they went after my wife, they went after an American citizen, and that's unacceptable in my mind. Going after other foreign intelligence officers, foreign politicians and all, you know, that's just part of the spook business. That's what we did in counter-espionage, but you don't do that against our own citizens. When you try to neutralize an American citizen, you've gone against everything I believe is right, and I'll do everything I can to expose the men involved.
Now, you have other documents around the world, right? You have videos and printed matter.
Videos, audios that have been placed on the videos, many video clips of different meetings I've attended, different orders being given, documents that have been put on the video. You know, technology is great, Ted. You know, I'd go into some of these high-level meetings, and because I was the chief of security for these groups, I would ensure that nothing's being bugged, the place was clean, so we'd sweep the place, and I'd keep my bugs going the whole time.
So you're the only one that had bugs
I'm the
going?
only one that had the bugs going.
Smart man, Chip Tatum, okay? That's why you're alive today, obviously.
That's why I'm probably one of the safest men alive right now, I think.
I would think so, because if anything happens to you, then these come forward, right?
That's right.
And Chip, I want to come back to this in just a minute, but I want to go back to Central South America, CIA drug running, et cetera, et cetera. Did you have any personal conversations with Ollie North after Fort Campbell?
Sure. On one particular occasion, well, on many occasions, Ollie was down there. I also called him through White House Switch and told him that I found drugs on board the aircraft. I said, you know, Colonel North, what is this? You know, we have drugs on board these aircraft. What are they doing on the aircraft? He said they were, evidence bound for world courts to prosecute the Sandinistas.
How many tons of evidence did you have?
8.
8 tons? Couldn't they just take a sample?
Well, it got worse than that. I would go into these Contra camps, and here would be these large fuel pods that had the tops cut off, and they had they were gelling their own stuff there. You know, they couldn't get enough bazuco, which was the paste used to make cocaine. They couldn't get enough of it from the Medellin cartel that they had ties with. Coming up from Peru, so they started bringing bales of their own leaves and bales of the little green pods. You know, I couldn't figure out what these little green pods were.
Who's they?
The man who was in charge of bringing everything up was a man named Ramon Navarro. He was dressed as a lieutenant colonel in some military. I didn't figure out what uniform he was wearing. Could have been a cabbie uniform, I don't know. But Ramon Navarro, and he would later be killed in 1991. Just before he was scheduled to testify in the Noriega case.
And what about Ollie North, besides your telephone conversation
Ollie
with
North
him?
was in country on several occasions, and on April 12th, even the Vice President Bush was in country. That
April
was
12th, what year?
1985.
And were North and Bush together?
Not together in the same encampment at that time, no. North was there, but...
So in talking to Ollie North personally, other than the telephone conversation, what was said in regard to drugs being brought in by the CIA and on the Army?
In one cocaine kitchen, as he was talking to Amir Amnir and another intelligence officer, he told them that one more year of this and we can all retire.
Now, you heard that conversation?
I taped that conversation.
Oh, very good. You taped that conversation.
Yes, I did.
And what other conversations could you tell us about as far as Ollie North is concerned?
Well, not only conversations, you know, Ollie was, he loved to be the center of attention, so one particular occasion we had him standing at a cocaine press trying to pressing the bricks. In this Sandinista camp? I don't think so. It was, they called these the North camps because North set them up.
And how many such bases were set up?
There were about 5 of the kitchens that were set up.
Did Ollie North set them up?
5 locations. Ollie North is the one who supplied all logistical support for that, yes.
And when was the last time you had a conversation with Ollie North?
Last time I talked to Ollie North was in September of 1994. He and Felix Rodriguez called me in my office in Colorado. I'd gone back to Colorado, gotten out of the business, gone back to Colorado. 25 years was enough. And he called me and told me to give up the documents or else.
The documents that you had in hiding?
Those flight plans and so forth.
Yeah, but had you already printed?
No.
You hadn't given them printer yet. Okay.
No. I wasn't going to say anything. I was sitting in Colorado as just a little businessman, running a mortgage company, not bothering anyone, just wanting to raise my family.
What did you tell him?
I told him, "Are you crazy? If I give you these, for one thing, they're headed for the shredder, and for another thing, I know it's a terminal effort. There's no way. Let's go for or else. I'm always a fighter."
What did he say to that?
Well, he said, "Well, let me get someone else." And they called me back, and Bill Colby was on the phone. And I said, "Bill," I said, "you know, to give these documents up, to give all this stuff up is terminal." I said, "You know, I'm going to keep them." And he said, "Well, you know, then we're going to have to hit your credibility." I said, "Okay, hit my credibility. What do you want me to do?" He said, "Well, walk into the U.S. Attorney's office and just tell him you did something wrong." So I did.
What'd you tell him?
Walked into the U.S. Attorney's office. I wired myself some money out of an account down across the state line, and then into my corporation. Then I took it out, and put it into my personal account. And because in the mortgage business that can be considered
embezzlement.
I told him that I participated in wire fraud. Arrest me, please. And so they did, but then they found out, once they put the attorney on it, they found out, well, you know, it's really not, the mortgage industry really isn't regulated in Colorado. I said, "Listen, I'm going to admit to this," because they said that they wanted to involve my wife in it. I said, "But you guys have to promise you leave her out of this." They said, "Okay." I said, "Let's go forward with the pleading." So I stood in front of a federal judge, and I said, and he asked me if I did this, and I said, "Yes." But before I said yes, I leaned over and I asked the U.S. Attorney, "My wife's going to stay clear?" And she said yes. And so I said, "Okay, I'll sign the plea agreement, Your Honor." And he said, and it's part of testimony, he really didn't want to go forward with it. He said, "You know, this really doesn't." And I said, "Your Honor, believe me, I wired those funds, I took those funds, I spent them."
How much money involved?
$70,000 of my money.
Of your own money, huh?
Of my own money.
Okay, but they didn't leave your wife alone.
They didn't. They came after her, and so when I went before the judge for sentencing, I told him at that time, you know, I didn't want to go forward with it. I'd like to withdraw the plea. But it was too late at that point. He said, "The thing to do is, after this is all done, you can go ahead and ask that the plea be withdrawn at the appeals court." And that's where we're at now.
And you're getting ready in a couple of days to go in. You've appealed it. The appellate level, you're going to have a decision in about 2 more days, right?
On the 24th of February.
Are you looking at prison time?
No, I don't think so. I've already spent 2 years of that time in prison, and I don't think that they want me back in prison. I really don't think they want me back in prison.
They want you to be quiet.
I was due to do 47 months, and the last thing they wanted was me in prison, simply because there were death threats against me in prison, and 2 NSA officers came in to see me when I was in prison at Jessup and told me that the warden advised them that there were people that wanted to kill me from the Mexican Mafia and the Crips and the Bloods. That I had crossed them the wrong way. I'd hurt some of their men. Actually, I didn't. I wasn't offensive toward them. They have their little scams that go on, and I wouldn't participate. So their enforcers, one of their enforcers, I broke his leg, and they didn't like that. So they had a hit out on me, a contract in prison to take me out. And the NSA came in and said, you can't allow this to happen. If you're killed, those tapes will come forward. And I said, that's right. And they said, well, you got to give us the tapes. I said, kids, are you crazy? And it's unbelievable. They send such young kids in. At least they could send somebody mature, you know, that I would have a little respect for. But they send them young and dumb. That's the way they do it.
Well, there's two factions in the CIA, I understand now. The graybeards and what do they call the other faction? The snot-nosed Bush kids?
Yeah, that's it. Snot-nosed Clinton.
Snot-nosed Clinton now, huh?
Snot-nosed Clinton.
Okay, Chip. So didn't they charge you with treason at one point?
Well, yeah. When I was held in prison before the trial that I went through, they told me that if I didn't give the documents up, I'd be charged with treason. And I said, okay, let's dance. And that's when I actually published this, gave them their copies, and went forward and right in the Tatum Chronicles. I mean, the Tampa Tribune caught on to it pretty quick, and did a big article. County inmate faces mysterious charge of treason. Well, you know, they knew they weren't going to be able to go forward with that particular charge, so they had to find something else. So what they ended up charging us
They
with,
couldn't go forward with the embezzlement charge, is what you're saying.
no, they couldn't go forward with that. They couldn't go forward with the treason charge. So what they did is they brought in a man, a lieutenant colonel, who...
Not Ollie North.
No, Ollie North's campaign manager.
Oh, really?
Bill Lusinger. They gave him complete immunity. Actually, not complete immunity. He came in, he said, Tatum conspired with me to make a false statement. I embezzled some funds, but Tatum told me I could have them.
Got you for conspiracy again.
Got me for conspiracy because a person came forward and said that an overt act had taken place.
Well, now he'd been convicted himself, right, of embezzlement.
Of bank fraud and embezzlement and everything
Okay,
else.
and so what did he do? Make a deal with the government to get his sentence reduced if he come in and lie about it?
It's better than that. He was facing 20 years for his stuff, but if he came in and told a good enough lie, he would get 6 months and it would be expunged from his record.
Is he out?
He actually got 6 weeks, yes, and it was expunged from his record. And he didn't have to pay back the 80 grand or whatever it was.
So he's a rich man.
Oh, yeah.
Within reason, that is. Chip, before I want to let's continue now with the problems involving the court and so forth. Anything else you want to mention? They came after Nancy, your wife. By the way, let me mention, folks, there's a separate interview with Nancy Tatum, which goes into detail, and we talk about Nancy's new book, Joining Club Fed.
Joining Club Fed.
And that's worth checking out and purchasing and reading because that substantiates and corroborates what Chip is telling us here right today. Is there anything else you want to mention about the court proceedings?
Well, I think the important thing for everyone to know is the United States federal courts are not your friend. They're not, and the United States federal court officers are definitely not your friends, although they would like to let you think that they're on your side. They want to do everything for you and your family, so work with them on this. They're not going to do that. And that's quite evident even today. We see just recently two men were actually arrested on a big anthrax scare. The courts didn't investigate it. They just got from a non-credible source that something was happening, and they went out and arrested them.
This is Larry Wayne Harris and Bill Levitt.
That's correct.
In Las Vegas, Nevada.
And now they're finding out that these microbiologists were actually putting together a vaccine for anthrax. You know, they don't think.
And I told the new, by the way, I was personally involved in that case. I had interviewed Larry Harris a day before he was arrested on my local talk TV station program, Ted Gunderson Intelligence Report. And the media talked to me after they were arrested. I said, nothing to it. Believe me, it's going to go away. These men are not terrorists. They're talking about defensive protection, not offense. Go ahead, Chip.
Well, and that's the court system as it's set up today is not set up as a tool for justice. It's set up as a tool for retribution. Anyone that they want, they can get. And you're going to spend 2 years in jail until you get to appellate level where you have a little bit of a chance for justice to be heard, but never at the district level.
Chip, going back to George Bush, How many conversations did you have with George Bush?
Hundreds.
Hundreds when he was head of the CIA?
Uh,
By phone and
no-
in person or both?
Not as many, probably about 30 at the CIA, but more post-CIA after 1986 when I was placed into what's called the operational subgroups, where I worked alongside Danish intelligence, Turkish intelligence, British intelligence, Mossad. We had groupings of foreign intelligence officers that worked directly under the Vice President and later the President of the United States.
Did George Bush have knowledge about the drug operation coming out of Central America and South America?
Yes.
Explain.
Well, he was in one of the camps.
Yeah.
Produced the cocaine.
Yeah, but did he know about it?
He was standing at a press.
George was also, in addition to
George
Ollie.
Bush was standing right at a cocaine press.
And did he have a picture of that?
In a place called Roos. I have a picture of something.
Okay, we won't go into that. So George Bush was aware of it too. Ollie North was aware of it. How about Clinton?
Bush was absolutely aware of it, and I can say that because on the 24th of March 1985, William Barr, who would later become Attorney General.
Attorney General, know him well,
yeah.
know of him well.
William Barr actually called Vice President Bush via SATCOM and talked to him about the loss of over $100 million in assets of the enterprise. And we all know the enterprise today as being the company that, or the operation that Ollie North set up.
$100 million? And who got their grubby hands on that?
It was decided that there were three entities involved, not one particular person, but Noriega had involvement, that Barry Seal had involvement, and that the governor of Arkansas, who was involved in it at the time, Bill Clinton, had involvement in it.
And of the three, Seal has been murdered. Noriega's in jail.
Noriega was to be murdered, though, during
yeah,
the assault in
they took
1990.
the troops down there in '89 to eliminate him, and he survived by going into, I think, a Catholic church, didn't he? Or
Right. Well, Bobby Hunt, SEAL Team 2 commander, had orders to go in and shoot Noriega when he tried to get out at the airport. He never showed up there because we told him ahead of time. The CIA told him he's a friend of the CIA. He was an enemy of Bush. That's nothing more than a business deal gone bad. We let him know ahead of time that there was a contingency coming in to assassinate him, needed to get to a safe house. So he chose that particular church as a safe house.
the Catholic church.
Catholic church got cameras out there so that he was safe.
And now the only one that's left is Bill Clinton. And did Bill Clinton take the $200 million, $100 million, whatever it was?
He got a large portion of it, very large portion of it. However, you know, I'm going to tell you now, Bush is a very vindictive man. I don't think that Clinton's out of the water with it. You know, I think he's still in some hot water, and that could be a lot of the pressure that he's seeing today. It may be a little bit of a vendetta to get even. You never have to get even tomorrow, Ted. In the business that we're in, you never push for something to happen right away unless there's an operational need for that. Time is always on your side.
Time down the road, whatever. You're talking about the Monica Lewinsky situation, right?
Yeah.
That has something, maybe it doesn't.
If you look historically, I know that I was told that Bush was going to leave bugs in the White House when he left. Why would he do that to another president unless he has a personal interest or personal vendetta there? The bugs in the White House, folks, don't mean electronic bugs. You know, the best bug in the world or the best information in the world is called human intelligence. So what you do is you take these career White House personnel and you put them in the White House, and they're listening and they're keeping track of everything that's going on. Well, it's hard to put an electronic device in the White House. If Starr thought that he could take Tripp or Lewinsky and put a bug on them and get them in the White House, all they'd end up was that person in prison for trying to bug someone in the White House. You don't get into the White House with a bug, but you get in there with a brain that can keep that intelligence in it and pass it on. That's how you get in, and that's how you bug the White House. So he always had constant information flowing to him from the White House from career workers in the White House. You know, why did they all of a sudden throw these people out of the travel office? Perhaps they thought that maybe there was a little intelligence work going on there.
Probably.
Tripp.
Clinton,
Well,
yeah.
let's look at Tripp. She was taken out of there right after Vince Foster because she talked about it. Wham, she's out of the White House and into other areas. You know, there's a lot to be looked at that's just overlooked by the mainstream media because I'm told I have a pretty devious mind. Well, you know, it's because I worked for these guys and I know how they think.
Chip, as far as Ollie North is concerned, you told me in one of the radio interviews I had with you that you had some recordings, audio recordings of a conversation in the back of an airplane. Was that with Ollie North or somebody else?
No, that was with Mike Harari and a man named Raymond Buddy Young. That was actually presented at our C.I.A briefing in Tampa, Florida, to Judge Adams. The recording was presented. We have transcripts of that, and we've actually put them in the Tatum Chronicles.
So now, when you say C.I.A, you're talking about your hearing before the judge where you discuss classified information, right?
Right. During the course, as we were leading up to the trial, there are certain filings that have to be done prior to a trial and hearings. And in April of 1996, just before the trial, the U.S. Attorney's Office gained information that perhaps I would attempt to disclose classified information from my previous work. So they filed a motion with the courts that required me to file a briefing, an actual brief, outlining any classified information that I would attempt to use in my defense.
And then the judge rules on it whether or not you can use it.
Then the judge rules on it. The decision that the judge has to make under the C.I.A requirements is, first of all, is it classified in any way? Second, does it involve national security issues? So after being presented with that material, and it has to be done in a declaration under oath, the materials were provided to them. And let me tell you something, if anything I said in there was false, I would have been charged with perjury. There was never a perjury charge. The issues that were given to him were investigated. I was never charged with perjury or obstruction of justice, trying to say that this happened when it didn't. You know, that's an obstruction of justice charge. No charges like that ever came out. That's a pretty big issue.
Was the judge sympathetic, you think, and objective?
You know, Nancy talks about this judge being a terrible judge, but let me tell you something. It's obvious to me, working in the arena that I work in, he knew what was going on. He made the decisions that he made, so there would be no question at the appellate court that justice was not served.
So actually, he probably was your friend then.
He's the only reason that I can talk about it today. By him saying that this information was not classified and doesn't have to do with national security, the CIA can't come back on me, national security folks can't come back on me for talking about what I presented to that court at the time.
Chip, let's go back, and we've talked about Ollie North, we've talked about George Bush, we talked a little bit about Clinton. Do you have any direct knowledge that Clinton was aware of the drug operation coming into Arkansas?
The direct knowledge is that Buddy Young was actually a advisor to Clinton. He was his chief of security, and he was one on board the aircraft, and he was sent there by Clinton to investigate the loss of monies that had been determined. Additional direct knowledge comes in the fact that one of the people called by Barr was the governor of Arkansas on that SATCOM. He called North, he called the vice president on this 24th of March conversation, and he called the governor of Arkansas and talked to him. So, and governor of Arkansas then was William Jefferson Clinton. So they were talking about the enterprise, about the lost monies, and additionally, in earlier years, when I was at Fort Campbell, Kentucky, I actually flew several missions carrying medical coolers again with money and drugs in it into Arkansas.
Out of where, Fort Campbell?
Out of Fort Campbell. It was delivered to us by the 324th Med Battalion.
Out of the South America?
Out of South America. They were operating in the South America in Honduras. It was flown by C-130 to Fort Campbell. It was marked medical supplies. Donor organs, this particular one was marked. And we were advised to give it to Dr. Lassiter at Little Rock Air Force Base. So we flew it to Little Rock Air Force Base. I opened the coolers. I don't fly a cooler without opening it. I don't fly anything without opening it. Let me tell you why I don't fly coolers without opening them. I was told by Colby earlier that Torrijos died simply because they put a cooler marked donor organs on his aircraft that blew up in flight. So whenever I see a cooler, I open that cooler.
And what did you find in the cooler?
We found a large sum of money and 3 kilos of cocaine in one cooler. In the other cooler, we found all cocaine. Those two coolers were picked up by Dr. Lassiter, who actually ended up being, as we found out in later years, a man named Dan Lassiter, who was convicted for trafficking cocaine in Arkansas. However, he was pardoned by the then governor of Arkansas, Bill Clinton.
And did you have any information that Clinton had direct knowledge of that? No, you flew him into Arkansas. Was Clinton there waiting for it, or was there a limousine there or anything like that?
We had to wait over an hour and a half for Dr. Lassiter to show up. But when he finally showed up, he showed up in an entourage of vehicles. There was a van, there was a stretch limo, and an unmarked police car. In the coming out of the stretch limo, Dr. Lassiter came forward. He had two people with him. One stayed at the car, and one came over. He introduced the one that walked over to the aircraft to pick up the coolers as the governor of Arkansas. And the governor of Arkansas extended his hand, and that's the first time I shook the hand of William Jefferson Clinton. He wanted to let me know that the people of Arkansas appreciated me bringing those donor organs.
That because he didn't know you'd looked into them.
He didn't know I looked into it.
Do you have that in your book?
Yes, I do.
Yeah, that's in again the Tatum Chronicles, right? Okay, Chip. Now, what about the truth serum, truth drug that the C.I.A. uses? We need to talk about that.
Sure.
People can be alert for it.
You know, I talked a little bit about in those containers down in South America, the processing that was done, and during the processing of cocaine, there were these little green pod-like things. I would later find out, working on the international side, that these little pods came from the nightshade family. They were used to produce a chemical called a form of what's called scopolamine, but it's a much stronger potion than what is commercially made. This stuff's made from the orange blossoming trumpet from the nightshade family, and we use it. We nicknamed it. It's called burudenga, the voodoo drug. We use that to drug a target. We can put them under our complete power. With a properly induced drug, they'll do whatever we ask them to do, and when the drug wears off, they won't remember anything that went on during the drugging.
Used quite extensively. Used quite
extensively, yeah. You know, every time I hear of an instance, to give you an example where an assassination's committed, and someone comes forward and on the political side, now not just in a small town, but on the political side when there are political assassinations like Rabin. I was in prison at the time, but there's no doubt in my mind that was a burudenga assassination. This kid apparently shot Rabin, went in and admitted to shooting him, and then 3 days later said he doesn't remember shooting him. He didn't remember ever signing any statement saying that that's burudenga.
You see that quite regularly, really.
Oh yeah,
don't you?
And it's actually becoming epidemic proportions. We've used it for years in the CIA, but now it's out in the general populace. And in Colombia, a lot of the gangs have it now, have access to it, and they're using it to rob people of their bank accounts. And, I mean, a guy will get hit with burudenga, given a Coke that has burudenga in it, take a drink of it, and next thing he knows, his bank account is empty, and he'd given it to this one of these drug gangs.
And they give him instructions, tell him what to do, he does it, and then 3 days later he doesn't remember.
They'll do anything. They'll shoot a person, they'll shoot themselves. They'll do anything you tell them to do.
What about drugs that the CIA uses to induce heart attacks and death?
Those are usually two-part poisons, compounds, so that they're not connected to a poison. We can, to ensure that a person gets the first portion, we've gone in and, like in an embassy, in one part of the world, we would put it in a punch so that most of the people are dosed with the first part of the compound, and then you have about 3 weeks before the second part of the compound has to be given to the target, and then that's the first gets into the muscles and in the heart, and it'll show up only as a compound. Once the second comes in, it'll show up in the blood only as a compound, but it actually induces a heart attack. People actually die of a heart attack, and that's why the coroners always report these as heart attacks, because it's really a heart attack, and there's no poison that shows up. It would only be a compound in the body.
Chip, is there any other particular areas you'd like to discuss before we conclude the interview?
I don't think so, Ted. I think
We covered it pretty well.
we have said
There,
quite a bit.
there was one other area I want to ask you about in conclusion then. What about Jupiter Island and the New World Order plans?
In the 1980s, 1990s, I was tasked under the Terrorist Incident Working Group to a unit called the Operational Subgroups. Many of our meetings in 89, 90, 91 were held in southeast Florida on Jupiter Island, in a briefing in a home of an affluent woman, and we held our briefings there. Those briefings would normally follow the G7 conferences and summits. And the reason it would normally follow that is because at that time, remember I said we were working as an international group, not necessarily just U.S. Intelligence officers. Under this international plan, they were looking toward doing a master plan for the whole world. You know, even as a community, as your community has a development plan to help develop the community into a better place, these people have their plans to develop the world into a better place. And I would sit in meetings and they would come to us and say, well, you know, we have a problem in this arena. We have a very uncooperative government, say in France. We need to do something there. So it would be tasked over to the operations and plans section of the operational subgroups to come up with a plan on what to do. So we would go into our planning phase. We'd look into say France and decide, well, you know, the president in France just isn't cooperating here. You know, he's kind of a loose cannon. What can we do? Well, let's do a little counterintelligence work, incite some riots or something like that. And that's what we did to help neutralize these countries and these leaders. Sometimes we go into a country and wipe out that leader's bank account and let him know, you know.
But you had the power to do that.
Sure we had.
Well, didn't you have a situation in Central or South America where the leader of the country was not cooperating, and he thumbed his nose basically at the CIA, U.S. government, and you said, well, within 2 weeks, your brother or one of your relatives would be eliminated? Is that true?
Daniel Ortega, the president of Nicaragua. We didn't have to pose that whole war down there to get him to have elections. All we needed to do was neutralize him, and we knew that all along. We went in, we told Ortega, you're going to hold free elections within, and you need to announce that. He said, well, I'm not going to do it. So our emissary came back and told us he's not going to do it. We sent him back down. Once it was given to the subgroups, we sent him down and told him to tell Raphael, or tell him that Raphael's going to die in 2 weeks.
Raphael was who?
His second cousin.
Okay.
Good friend of his, one of his best friends. And so he put thousands, he put him in a compound, was protected by a large contingency of troops. But on the day that we told him he would die, he died.
You want to say how he died?
Rocket fire.
In a car?
Well, no, in the compound it was rocket fire, but we also had people on the ground there too. So whether it was rocket fire or whether it was a bullet to the head, you know.
Well, now Jupiter.
There wasn't enough left to tell.
Unfortunately, now Jupiter Island. Who were?
Let me qualify.
Okay.
Within 2 weeks, Ortega announced that there would be free elections in that country because he was next.
Right, and you told him that.
We told him.
How about going back to Jupiter Island? Who attended these meetings at Jupiter Island?
Had quite a few big names in those, and I'll talk about a couple of those, but I won't go beyond that because I like talking. I like breathing. I like eating. No matter how good my insurance is, I know that there's some people you never talk about.
Right.
So I won't. George Bush was one who would normally attend those meetings, if not personally, at least through teleconferencing. An additional member that was always there was the man who still commanded me in these operations and who actually recruited me into black operations. His name was Bill Colby.
Who's now dead.
Who's now dead.
Mysterious death.
When I walked away, I was told you don't just walk away, and I believe he walked away too, and that's why.
Right, mysterious death.
Another person who was there who oversaw all of our finances now runs the Judicial Oversight Committee in the
William
United
Hyde?
States Congress, Henry Hyde.
I mean Henry Hyde.
Uncle Henry.
Henry Hyde, U.S. Congressman from Illinois.
That's the man. So you think you're going to get judicial parity? I don't think so.
You know, that reminds me, Chip. I have some other names I could run by you, but I won't put you on the spot, okay?
I appreciate that, Ted.
Let's see. He's a gentleman. He's a man. I'm not going to call him. I met him in the White House myself on one occasion. Not General Haig, but somebody else. Let's see. That was 1973 for me. I had another thought that I wanted to bring up, and I'll remember it down the road.
Well, you
here.
had asked me earlier what I'm doing these days, and let me tell you what I'm doing. You know, being a spook by trade, you can't just walk away. You can't just give it up. And you asked me what I'm doing on your radio show. What are your plans? And right now, I'm working as the two-county coordinator for the American Red Cross. And the reason I'm working as a two-county coordinator in Florida for the American Red Cross is it gives me the opportunity to interface directly with probably one of the darkest organizations the United States has ever seen, and that's FEMA.
Oh, we know about FEMA.
So I've been able to effectively infiltrate FEMA. I'm the person who deals directly with them in all issues and sit in meetings with them, and little did they know that they had a spook in their midst.
They know it now.
Yeah, they know it now. I told them last week in my last meeting with them.
Well, then you have some pretty good information, I think, don't you?
I waited till I got what I needed, and then I put it on the website. I did a big article on the website, exposed what they have going, how they effectively hope to take over. You know, the big thing with FEMA is if the United States ever goes in to martial law, which can be put in place any time now because of Clinton's recent filings under the National Security
Executive
Act.
orders.
Right. Since he's declared a national state of emergency already, all he has to do is have a nuclear, biological, or chemical threat active, and he can declare martial law. That's going to be pretty easy if he pushes Saddam into blowing up a biological, or if he shows the United States that there are people here, factions here, trying to do that, like they just tried to do with Harris. He can then effectively declare martial law. If he does that, though, the people who really take over the country and run things is FEMA. So you have to make sure, and I don't know that James E. Witt, the current head of FEMA, is one who goes along with this plan. He just, you know, in sitting in our briefings and everything, he's just not one that's going to do it. So.
Well, didn't they replace him, or aren't they replacing him?
So quietly, last fall, they opened some offices in Washington at FEMA headquarters and brought their Region 6 administrator, a man named Raymond Buddy Young.
Oh, we mentioned him earlier, right?
Bill
Security
Clinton's
officer.
Security chief.
That's right.
Is taking over FEMA.
Well, we'll see what happens in the future. Of course, we know FEMA is Federal Emergency Management Agency, and they have they take precedent over all law enforcement, federal and local,
And
in the event of
military.
and military in the event of a national emergency.
That's correct.
What a very clever plan devised by. That was originally set up by Bush, wasn't it?
Yeah, it actually came from years ago, and if folks would ever want to go to the website and read that article, it's available there. It's called FEMA, the Dark Underbelly.
What's your website?
It's if they'll go to www.2.net and then just click on the Black Ops at the bottom of the page, they'll go right to the website.
What about prison camps? You had information about prison camps.
When we would fly cross country in Black Ops, in Special Ops, we would normally RO in at different areas. Nellis Air Force Base was one. A lot of military bases where they have large encampment areas that are built. We would RO in. We'd stay in those encampment areas. High security encampment areas. No cargo inside. And they aren't built for cargo. They aren't built to store things. They're built for people. What they intend on doing with that, I don't know, but they're in place.
How many prison camps would you say?
You know, I know of 5 or 6 that I saw. I also know that the United States Bureau of Prisons is in the process of acquiring land across the U.S. In Coleman, Florida. They just acquired 1,200 acres for a prison, and they don't need near that for a prison. That's a big area.
Well, they already have a prison, in federal prison in Coleman, Florida.
Yeah, that's correct.
There's a political prisoner there named Michael Reconnaisuta, who I'm in contact with regularly.
Right.
Ex-agency also, by the way. Well, you know, in Texas, there are 8 prisons that have been built in recent years. They are staffed, but there's no inmates there. Is that the case in the prison camps that you were in?
Yeah, they were staffed with security, you know, just skeleton crew security.
But no inmates.
No inmates, no.
Watch out. Be careful. It's right around the corner, it looks like.
And I don't
it?
prefer the word inmates. I prefer the name prisoners or convicts. If you're convicted, you're a convict. If you're not convicted, you're a prisoner.
Is there anything else you want to mention about FEMA?
No, I think that's about it. It's probably one of the darkest agencies that we have. Really, its power is they have unbridled power to do anything. You know, it takes Congress right out of the act. All Clinton has to do, or all the president, whoever it may be, has to do is from time to time report to Congress. That means he can send a 3x5 card to them, say, "Hey guys, things are fine and dandy. Come on back to work someday, but not today."
What about Rothschild, Rockefeller? Do you have any connections there? The CIA and some of the cool...
Not the CIA.
Rockefeller, let me see, I keep forgetting about the mic. How about the Rockefeller, the Rothschilds, and that bunch? Do you have anything that would tie them into the CIA operation, covert operation?
Not CIA, but in Black Ops and when we talk about the G7 meetings and setting things in place, that, the powerful families always have input to the politicians that they've placed in power. And so in that arena, it's very easily for them to get their own desires taken care of. On a number of occasions, we've done work for them.
You're talking about Jupiter Island now?
Yes.
Do they have representatives there?
Well, sure.
Do you know, I know you know about the Bilderbergers, Council of Foreign Relations, Trilateral Commission. Were the representatives of those organizations there?
When you talk about the Bilderbergers and G7, you're really talking about the same group of people, because the G7 are the politicians representing all these group of people. And some of these top politicians bring in their desires, and this is what we want to do, and Amschel Rothschild wants this done before he died, and it was done.
And then Rupert Murdoch put out the word to 600 of his various news outlets and said, under no circumstances mention homicide, either natural causes or suicide, and of course they came out with he hung himself, and then the French police came along and said, wait a minute, it was murder, he was murdered. You remember that?
Yeah.
More control of the media.
Hung himself on a towel rack in a hotel. Now, folks, how many people have you hung a wet towel on the towel rack and it fell out of the wall?
Exactly.
Kind of tough.
That's right. Chip, there's a couple other areas I thought about.
Okay.
Then just come back to my memory now, because we've been skipping around now at the end. You mentioned on my radio show how you dealt with, we mentioned Henry Hyde earlier, how you dealt with some of your assignments financially. Do you want to go into that? You had an attorney in Northern New York, and you could walk into certain banks, and on your signature you get $250,000 without any difficulty.
Well, in the earlier years with the CIA, all of us understand, I think a lot of us have seen the movie Air America, how the CIA would set up, they're called proprietary companies. We learned early from those efforts that we could do that in the Black Ops arena also. Working for the operational subgroups, we would set up what's called proprietary companies. We have trusted attorneys across the nation and around the world that will set up these proprietary corporations as an everyday business, so that we can work an intelligence operation out of who knows, you may be sitting in the Xerox Corporation and it's not really, not that that's it. However, I will say the Wilson family was heavily involved with us in the upstate New York area, and that's the Xerox family, in seeing to funding. We would set up businesses to see that use as covers so that we could provide operations. In upstate New York, we did it because we were working that border area in Canada, bringing weapons and personnel across the border covertly.
Into the Indian reservation?
There, we use the Indian reservations on occasion because it's a federally protected area, but normally I just fly low level under radar. It's a non-radar environment, practically. So I just bring personnel and equipment across as needed. Both ways. I take people out of the country and bring people into the country. What they did with those people, I don't know, but some of them were pretty top.
Well, you know their identity too.
Right.
So you're talking about bringing foreigners in?
Right.
From other countries, of course, from Europe, et cetera, where they were secretly bringing them in. Where? Meetings in Washington?
Sometimes we were bringing in some pretty famous criminals to meet with people too.
Mafia? From overseas?
From overseas. People that we thought were gone for years and years that we'd bring in for meetings. They're just in sanctuary somewhere.
Let's go back to did I state it properly when I said on your signature you could pick up $250,000 cash?
On my signature, $250,000. It was set up by an attorney out of Rochester, New York, who was a company man.
Is he alive today, the attorney in Rochester, New York?
No, he died.
Heart attack?
I don't know, but he's no longer with us.
He shouldn't have had that punch.
No, I will say though that he was ill even when he was working with us. But I had a $250,000 line of credit. I could walk in, and the reason we had that is these missions, you know, they're not cheap. You have to hire your assets in, and I would have to pay men from $25,000 to $50,000 per mission to work for us, and that's how it was done. It was done with cash. You know, we don't
no
say
paper trail.
Where's your checking account? Here's your at the end of each month. They didn't get a what's it called, a pay stub showing them their withholding and everything.
No, yeah, no IRS problem. At least that way, right?
That's what I love about the media. You know, you read about black operations, and the media always wants to say, "Well, I want to see your pay stub from that." Well, these guys are just about brainless. I don't know any other way to say it.
And now speaking of Henry Hyde, we talked about him earlier. He was the one that kept track of your $250,000 withdrawals.
Well, he set up the account and got the line of credit for us. And he could do that because he was heavily involved in the banking industry. Where the guarantees for that money came from, I don't know. But I know that they always had to have a participating banker in the bank that we used. And this particular banker was one of the vice presidents of commercial lending. So,
Chip, let's go back now. And you were asked to coordinate an operation against a fellow American at one point, and that's when you, according to your previous interviews with me on the radio, decided you had enough. Mm-hmm. Tell us about the meeting that you attended where you announced that.
Well, you know, Ted, this was simply the final straw. I had been asked on numerous occasions to participate in operations against American citizens. From the time I joined the operations subgroups in '86, they targeted U.S. citizens, they targeted foreign citizens, and in the intelligence community, fair game for us, our targets were what we thought of as criminals, intelligence officers, and politicians around the world that we target to influence outcomes of certain things. But when they started targeting U.S. citizens, you know, having been a target at one time myself in Vietnam, I was a target.
You're a little sensitive then.
I'm very sensitive when it came to that, and I told.
Not to mention when they targeted Nancy.
Yeah, that's right. That was it. I'll tell you.
That broke it. That's it, right?
When,
okay.
when I was
and good
asked,
for you. Huh?
When I was asked in '92 to see to it that Ross Perot was neutralized, and when I say neutralized, it means that we can intimidate him, we could coerce him, which is a little stronger, more strong-arm tactics, or we could terminate him. And the man who actually gave the order to do that was George Bush, the President of the United States.
And this was in a meeting you attended.
It was in Jupiter Island. He wanted Ross Perot neutralized. I went to a friend who's a federal officer. I walked out that day. I dropped a tape on the table. It had been my insurance policy, and I so that they could see what I had, I let them know, this is what I have. If I die, it'll come forward.
Now, this is you're in a meeting, and you said, I've had it. This is enough. Put the tape down. Hey, guys, I'm leaving. You left. Do you think that they reviewed the tape immediately?
I bet they couldn't get it in a VCR quick enough.
I would imagine they had a stampede right behind you with the tape in hand.
I talked to Colby.
The first VCR machine.
I talked to Bill after that. He was in the meeting, and he said that they just looked at each other stunned at first. They just couldn't believe it, because Bill told me on the spot. He said, Chip, you can't walk away from black operations. And that's when I put it down, and a smile came across his face, because he's the one that told me to do it. He's the one that taught me to make it.
That told you how to do it, huh?
Yeah, he knew on all those meetings what I was doing. You know, here I'd sit there with a briefcase, pointing the briefcase. It was pretty obvious to him. He and I were the only real spooks in the meeting, that, you know, other than some of the other...
You were the only two real loyal Americans then, weren't you?
Well, yeah, others were Mossad agents and so forth, but they're protected by this too. Most of the guys in the OSGs are protected. When I say that there's 8 different officers, they're not necessarily U.S. officers.
What are the other countries represented there?
The Mossad, and British intelligence. Those 3 entities are compile the 8 men that protects right now.
Wait a minute. The Mossad, British, and American?
The Mossad, British, and American.
But didn't you have other countries represented there?
We had Danish intelligence, we had Turkish intelligence, yeah. But that was, sometimes Australians, you know, had input in, but that was about it.
Well,
I think they had Australians because they could shoot over to China pretty quick.
I have good information that the CIA was responsible for, let's say, eliminating one of the Australian forms of government and bringing in their own people. Do you remember that?
Yeah, I remember that.
Yeah, I have some other contacts of my own that have told me that before. And by the way, I no longer receive Christmas cards from that fellow anymore. Since I went public.
Since you went public with it? Yeah. All heart, Ted.
Oh, my Christmas card list has dropped drastically. It went from like that down to about like that when you stack the cards one on one. But I don't worry about that. Neither do you. No, because we know we're doing the right thing. Chip, there were some other questions I wanted to ask you. Chip. Hey, wait a minute. How do I know you're telling me the truth?
Because you like me, Ted.
Now, I hugged Nancy, but I'm not going to hug you. No, Chip, what I'm telling you, the answer I want to that is...
I can give you an answer.
I know you can. That's why I asked it.
Okay.
Tell me. Tell them.
I'm telling the truth because I have it documented. You don't have to take my word for it. It's documented. It's not only documented in the documents here, it's also documented in federal documents.
Oh, it is?
Court case.
Tell us about that.
There's a federal trial that took place. During that federal trial, the C.I.A. briefing, everything was put in place. There are transcripts to that available to the public. All you have to do is do a filing, Freedom of Information Act filing, but you really don't even have to do that. You can walk right into the federal courts in Tampa, Florida, pay your $25 to the clerk and get copies of it without even putting a filing in, because that judge made sure that that C.I.A. briefing wasn't classified.
Chip, you're the only you don't have ex-CIA. You're the only CIA agent that I've known, and I've known a few of them through the years, who can come forward and say, it's documented, the CIA admits that I worked for them. That's in that document, right?
It's in the document.
Yeah. Now,
never a denial on the government's part.
Now, can somebody call Washington, D.C., a certain number and say,
sure,
is Chip Tatum, or was he an employee of the CIA? Who would they call?
Doyce Gene Tatum, Jr., just call the personnel office at Langley. On the documents is my Social Security number at Tampa. You can get the Social Security number. You can actually get the case number from the court and use that and find out if I was an employee.
Okay.
It's pretty cut and dry. There's no denying who I work for.
No, yeah, right. Okay, but you're the only
one.
The
only thing that they can deny is what I have to say.
But they always deny it, or they say
sure,
we have no record, and the CIA agents are not allowed to even identify themselves as CIA. Let's face it.
Well, and that's law.
That's by law, right?
That's by law.
Yeah.
Sure.
So if some guy
because this federal judge made this ruling, it's not.
And
law.
some guy goes around saying I'm a CIA agent, don't believe him.
Yeah. No,
isn't that right?
That's right. And
I've heard of this. Okay. Before we discuss Nixon's darkest secret book, we've already talked about Tatum Chronicles.
And Nixon's darkest secret is Operation Red Rock.
Operation Red Rock, right? Which we went in detail right in the beginning.
You bet.
Is there any other comments you want to make or anything else you want to discuss?
Well, we've sent Operation Red Rock out to publishers around the United States, but there's some liability problems because I named the names. And these are pretty powerful guys. A couple of them are still alive, so it's difficult for them to do the publishing, so we've self-published. But the remarks that I get back from everyone, including Hollywood, is this is one of the best reads we've ever had.
Oh, are you kidding?
Really,
what a great movie.
Exciting book.
Yeah, what a great movie.
So we do have someone who's willing to go forward with a movie on Operation Red Rock now, but we're going to have to fictionalize it a little bit so that there's not that liability.
Are you going to have a movie of it?
Yes.
Oh, great.
Yep. There'll be a movie within the next couple of years, I'll say.
Ah, great. Fantastic. And
they can get that by calling our 1-800 number, 800-201-7892, and ask for extension 58. Just tell them you want Nixon's darkest secret or Operation Red Rock, same thing. That's one of the darkest secrets of Nixon's life, the fact that he ordered 13 American soldiers murdered.
And, of course, they can also order the Tatum Chronicles.
Those Tatum Chronicles got me charged with treason, Ted, and thrown in prison for 2 years. I think it's worth looking at if you people would like to order the Tatum Chronicles. Again, 1-800-201-7892. Make copies of the documents, give them to the media. Challenge anybody. Show me where they're wrong. They can't do it.
Okay, also, folks, you can purchase this video. I know you're looking at it right now, but if you want some for your friends, or your friends want to purchase this video, call
1-800-201-7892. Extension 58, and it's available. Just talk to the operators. They take MasterCard, Visa, and personal checks.
And I will also make these available through my flyer and catalog and so forth. So we'll two-time them, Chip.
You bet. Get it out around the world.
That's right. Okay, listen. Congratulations, Chip. It's always a pleasure talking to you. We'll have another 26-hour interview on my radio show in the future.
Okay.
Every time I talk to this man, he comes out with some new information. But thanks for appearing on the
Thanks, Ted.
on the mic and in front of the video. And God bless you. You're a great American. And I'm real proud to say that I know you and have really worked with you indirectly.
Thanks. Let me say one last thing. Marine Recon all the way, boys.
Yes. Thank you, Marine Recon. See you later, folks.